Yo, what's up guys? Welcome to a new video. This is the 4th installment of my fantasy schedule. I hope y'all enjoy it. We're trying to hit 10k subscribers, so please subscribe and like the video and watch all the way to the end, and I'll see you at the end.
Good morning.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. Coming up next, regular show on Cartoon Network.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
The Superhero Squad show. Coming up next, Teen Titans Go on Cartoon Network.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Beyblade Metal Fusion.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Coming up next, The Amazing World of Gumball on Cartoon Network.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Coming up next, Adventure Time on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, more Adventure Time on Cartoon Network.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Coming up next, Ninjago Masters of Spin Jitsu on Cartoon Network.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next. Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Coming up next, Johnny Test on Cartoon Network.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Codename Kids Next Door.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Camp Lazlo. Coming up next, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated on Cartoon Network.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Chowder. Coming up next, DreamWorks Dragons Riders of Berk on Cartoon Network.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Ed, Edd n Eddy. Coming up next, What's New, Scooby-Doo on Cartoon Network.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Check out what's coming up tonight on Cartoon Network.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Batman, the Brave and the Bold.
Next. Later.
On Cartoon Network.
Next. Later.
On Cartoon Network.
Next. Later.
On Cartoon Network.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Star Wars The Clone Wars.
Later.
Thundercats.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Thundercats.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next. Coming up on Cartoon Network, next. Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Thundercats.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Coming up next, Tenkai Nights on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, more Tenkai Nights on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, Ben 10 Omniverse on Cartoon Network.
Next.
Coming up next, Scooby-Doo and the Legend of the Vampire on Cartoon Network.
Next.
Coming up next, Legends of Chima on Cartoon Network.
Coming up on Cartoon Network, next.
Coming up next, Ninjago Masters of Spin Jitsu on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, DC Nation on Cartoon Network.
Next.
Wow, you actually listened to what I said in the intro. you made it to the end. Thank you very much. Hopefully you subscribed and you enjoyed the video, and we're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, so please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the